If I start with the questions. Minister, the panel wrote to you in July, and in your response, you advised that there was a shortfall in up-to-date policies across children's social care. So please, could you tell us a bit more about that, like which policies are affected and the time frame?
Well, actually, what I'm going to say is, obviously there are the sort of outcome of all our policies is the best possible outcome for children in care and, in fact, children in the island. Yes, there was a shortfall, and work has been done towards that. And I'm actually going to ask Donna, I think, is probably best placed to give us a review of that.
So we've had, there are policies and procedures, but they are out of date, some of them, and it was felt that we needed to do a whole-scale review, both of the policies and procedures in the residential estate as well as across children's social care more generally. So that review has been underway. We've had somebody particularly procured to do that, commissioned to do that piece of work for us, and to get all of those policies and procedures uploaded into one system called TriEx is the plan, and that's a system that they use in the UK that would then be able to be regularly updated and reviewed in a more consistent way. So we've got two bits of work, the residential estate policy and procedure review and the rewrite, and the same in social care. And they'll be starting to come online, I think probably sometime in November. We've already started, quite a lot have been written, but we're trying to do them in a more coherent and more consistent way. So it's well in hand.
Okay, great. I've got a few more. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that there's little doubt that was an area where there were shortfalls, and I think that had been the case for some time. And I'm perhaps quite enthusiastic about the work that Donna's doing. I'd say, in particular, the residential plan. But we'll come back to that at a future date and tell you more about it.
That sounds good. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I have a few more questions there, but they may not apply, seeing as it's being updated right now. I was going to ask, are current policies clear for staff? So what they've already got to go on, or...
So that's part of the same piece of work, really. The need for those policies and procedures to be current, regularly reviewed. So we've built a new process around that, around creating a policy group that will review them regularly, and then they'll get circulated to staff in a more consistent way. And we've got work underway about the things like the foster carers handbook, so that then staff are clear about what the offer is and how that's delivered as well. So and that will happen, that the policies will get signed off and then they'll get shared with staff and more consistently rolled out, so that they're clearer and more able to talk consistently about them.
Okay, and so are the current policies and the future policies, are they seen by service users as well? Are they able to see what these policies are?
So it depends, I suppose, which policies and procedures. So some things will, like things like the care leavers offer, will be online. That's currently under review for completion for December. Will be signed off by the corporate parenting board. So it depends, I suppose, which policies. Some are outward facing, and some will be processes and procedures that staff need to do in their day-to-day work that you wouldn't really have on a external site. But TriEx will probably be quite broadly open. It's not the sort of thing you'd necessarily close within a department.
Let's try it.
Yeah, it's just it's really an online system that they have to have the procedures, so that work can go in, staff can go in through a web-based system, and it means that you can keep them much more current and up to date and regularly reviewed, because they get the company that run it help you to keep on top of that as well. So it's done by regular review.
Okay, thank you. So my next question, in the public sector staffing statistics for 30th of June 24, there were 35 vacancies reported in sites for social workers. So could you confirm where these roles lie? So how many are in CAMS, how many in children's social care, for example?
I don't believe there are actually any in CAMS, that's correct.
Social workers,
No. And where we do have vacancies, the vast majority of those are actually covered by agency staff, so it's not that there's a gap. The exact numbers, if we look at children's social care, CAMS, young people across them, we have currently actually 14 vacancies. Children's social care have 7. There are, well, strange enough said there's 5 in CAMS, but those are actually all covered. So there are no, and then young people, the youth service, there are 2 vacancies, so altogether 14. I don't know if, Donna, you want to say a little bit more on that. I mean, we are interviewing for a number of those roles. And as I say, agency staff are actually covering the positions at the moment.
So they're the live vacancies that we have running at any one moment in time that are actually in the system that there's adverts out for, and people are in either the interview process or the selection process.
Okay, and those are they social workers? Mostly the social care.
These are social work, yes.
Yeah, and those roles are covered by agency staff at the moment.
Yeah, we haven't got unfilled vacancies in the social work system, so they are covered by agency staff that backfill them.
Okay, so can you confirm if any of these roles will be impacted or removed as a result of the government's recruitment freeze? So definitely not.
No.
So firstly, most of those roles are frontline services, and of course some of them would be under grade 11, but even if they're not, they wouldn't be impacted by the current recruitment freeze.
No.
Right. Now, just have a couple of questions about 0 hours contracts. So 566 staff in sites were reported to be on 0 hours contracts. So can you confirm how many of them are in children's social care, CAMS and the youth service?
Right. In CAMS there are no 0 hour contracts. Children's social care there are 100, and in young people's youth service there are 87. And the youth service, you would expect there to be a large number of 0 hours contracts, because within the various youth centres we have around the island, of course, there are many people may only work 2 or 3 hours in the evening. We need to have adequate levels of staffing, which there always are. And of course, some of these people, they will have other work, but they will come in to do the work in the youth service. Children's social care, that is about, again, ensuring that we are adequately staffed, but of course that can fluctuate around the number of children that we actually have and the needs of the various care homes. So I'm not unhappy about those numbers. They are there out of necessity.
Could I just ask though a bit more about that? Because I can imagine like bank staff, you need bank staff, for example, but I still don't really understand why they'd be on 0 hours contract.
It is a core part of the critical staffing infrastructure. So for any 24/7 care-facing service, whether it's children's or adults, you will always need to have staff who are able to work flexibly, and many of those staff within that field of work will opt to want to work on a 0 hours arrangement, whether that's through the bank or directly within a specified care facility. It's a critical part of our business continuity. Without it, we would likely have an adverse impact of not having adequate cover, because we wouldn't meet some of the workers' flexibility of how they want to work.
I think quite a lot of those staff as well will have a proper contract, and they'll have a 0 hours contract on top. Right. So they'll be employed.
46
staff
staff within the 100 within children's services will have a substantive contract.
Okay.
And will that include things like sort of family support workers as well, who support children
Same.
after school? And
they might just do 2 hours with a particular family every night or one night a week.
And residential childcare officers as well are included.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it always looks a lot, but it actually isn't. It's what you'd expect every system to have, a good system.
Okay, so you've explained the reasons for that, but can you explain whether it's considered a risk for the operation of certain site services to have, you know, these numbers on 0 hours contracts.
The opposite.
Well, having having that number of 0 hours contracts, I think with the, as we explained, there are, fluctuating levels of staff that are required, and it's difficult to work without sort of reasonably high levels of people who are on a 0 hours contract, because otherwise you would be permanently in a position of being overstaffed, and there weren't actually the requirement, or understaffed. Yeah. Well, if they were all permanent positions, we'd be overstaffed.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, even if we had a zero vacancy rate and a fully staffed complement, you would still require a flexible working pattern process for this kind of workforce, because they're 24/7, many of them, and you need them to be able to react to emergency sickness, to additional demand, to more enhanced ratio to child care support, and you need to be able to do that through a flexible contract, and that's why 0 hours particularly are often aligned to care-facing sectors.
I can see that, but also they could just say, no, we're not coming in. They don't have to come in.
They could, and if it's not convenient to their working pattern, they will, but they enter into the arrangement knowing that that is part of the option of being able to deploy, and so you as part of the process have an understanding of who is available, who is able to cover, and that's the nature of how a bank process will run.
So you don't think it's a risk to the operations?
No, I think it provides resilience.
Right, okay.
Can I just ask a question? Do you see a big difference between flexible working patterns and 0 hour contract arrangements and the impacts on the worker? Because there is two differences, isn't it? A 0 hour contract means the organisation yourself will have no kind of obligation to provide those hours, neither will the employee will have the obligation to answer to those hours. A flexible pattern means that the amount of hours are there regardless, but they're given at different times of the day to the employees. Is that a difference that makes, that's what we're trying to talk behind that, is the guarantees of the amount of hours per week or per month.
Like a minimum hours contract. Minimum hours contract is that you're talking about?
Flexible pattern.
Yeah.
Not really. Flexible pattern, you could do, say, morning shifts, evening shifts at different rates, but you would be doing a guaranteed certain amount of hours.
Yeah.
0 hours, that is taken away completely, and that's that vulnerability of the employee we might be wanting to touch on.
I
I think
would
some of
say-
these people actually want that.
Well, they do, and this is a
So-
sector where we have where we need, we have a high requirement for additional hours to be worked. So it's the opposite of opportunity for shifts to be covered in reality. So the possibility of them not having adequate work to fill is not an experience that we have. They're actually able to work as many hours as they would probably need to because of the nature of the business. So,
And that's,
so
I
we
suppose,
offer,
is what we call the overtime, isn't it?
well, we have
When there is
overtime, we
extra
have 0
time there
hours,
to
and we
work.
have flexible working. We have all three areas within this particular workforce.
I'm just trying to make a point. They are all different from 0 hour contracts, flexible work, overtime. They're all different amounts of work that are given or taken away from an employee.
It's a contractual arrangement that suits the employee as well, because they don't want to have a fixed amount of hours they have to work in a week. They might want to just do 2 hours one evening a week when they've got time. And then it's if that matches with when we need the 2 hours. So it's a two-way need. It's meeting the business need, but the employees' needs as well.
And of course, since the legislation changed last year, any employee has the right to ask for their contract to be reassessed if they're not on the appropriate contract for the work that they're doing. So our employees will, be fully aware of that situation.
Okay, thank you. Just a question now about training. How many social workers are trained on island?
Right, okay. If we look at the, we've got figures from basically the 2019 entrance. So it's a three-year course. So in 2019 to 2022, there were 7 people in that course. In the course that started the next year, there were another 7, and 2022 to 2025, there were 10. Now, out of those, we actually had 14 people who were offered placements. Now, I think out of those, actually three of them have actually left us since. So we still have 11 of those remaining, which I think is given some of them started this in this process in 2019, that's not an unrealistic sort of loss. I think it's reasonable, and I mean the reason is one person actually emigrated, so can't do anything about that. Another went to work for in the same field, but for one of the third-party organisations, and there's you're bound to get movement from children's services to other organisations, and one of them actually decided that they wanted to move into the adult sector, so still working for us, but have gone into adult social care. So I think that's quite a good record, and we continue to have people going through that process.
Well, that's good. And actually, I was going to just check with you. The social work degree is still running? Right?
Yes.
It's currently running?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And do you think there's capacity to build up more?
I certainly would like to see more.
Yeah. Okay.
Did a new cohort start this year in 2024?
It certainly did.
Process of
Yes.
just getting the numbers.
Yes, we need the numbers, but there is definitely one
It's a
running at the
there is a
moment.
first year
Yes,
one
yeah.
this year. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's been a change of provider, hasn't there, from University of Sussex to University of Plymouth, I believe.
Yeah.
It is definitely running, so okay. Now I just want to ask, yes, question about family day carers. Can you confirm what oversight you have of the requirements that are put on family day carers? Because we have heard that the number of them has dropped dramatically over the last few years.
Right, so are you able to?
Well, can I ask what you mean by family day carers?
My wife is one.
It's in a
That
different
falls
part of
within
the different
Ministry of
ministerial.
Education and Lifelong
Yeah,
Learning.
sorry.
Yeah.
It's keys, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, that's not part of our.
If you want to,
Yeah.
you could always write
We can
to
we
us.
can provide you with that
Provide
information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
But we don't. We're not. It's not actually our responsibility.
Difficult to see sometimes.
I know.
where-
I know. Even I have problems.
Because they're looking after children.
Yeah. But okay, yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. And then the next question as well, it's a little bit unclear where this sits, which is why I'm asking it. Minister, do you feel there is sufficient support for the educational psychology service, and whether this comes through CAMS or through
It's
education?
in education.
It's in education. They're different services. Yeah. Yeah.
So some of them I thought came under CAMS, but it's still
it's all
education. It's the
education,
overall
yeah.
education.
They work closely with CAMS,
Yeah.
but it falls under the Minister of Education Lifelong Learning's portfolio.
Okay, thank you. I think now we're on to you.
Design, Claire. Minister,
Yes.
please can you explain what updates are currently being made to the foster carers handbook and information pack?
Right. Okay. So the handbook will be ready for review by the senior leadership by the end of this month, and it's going to establish clear guidance and expectations of foster carers, including procedures on seeking approval before purchasing items. In addition, there will be an appendix that provides the maximum cost attached to items that need to be purchased, such as mattresses, bedding, etc. And I think that giving people clarity is quite important, because at the moment, I don't think there is that clarity. So once approved by the senior managers, the handbook will be launched at an event where we'll invite all foster carers. They'll be able to share their views with us and the head of service. But that's, as I say, it's going to be due for review by the end of this month. And I would hope that we're looking at having that event by the end of this year.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'll be ready for publishing by the end of November. And then ready
I mean,
to
having
launch subsequently.
having said that, you know, we do our utmost to provide, in the meantime, providing clarity to the foster carers. We have regular meetings with them.
That was my next question.
Yes, they have visits. Do you want to ask your question, or shall I just?
No, you just answered it.
But you know, there are supervision meetings, of which not bad. 91% of them were on time. Obviously, there's a little bit of 9% is not particularly. It's not a massive amount where we failed to be on time, but 91% of them are on time. 85% of foster carers had their home and safety check. 5 foster homes require an up-to-date home and safety check. Unfortunately, the delay here was due to a change in social worker, but we're on that now. We've 100% of the annual reviews have been held on time, and 100% of foster carers have up-to-date DBS. And what we've also done is we've, as well as quarterly meetings with the foster carers, we've also had a couple of social events where we've been, and in fact, I find those quite useful because people will quite often approach you on one of those events to have a sort of confidential chat or whatever about things that they might not necessarily raise in a meeting in front of everybody else. So I think we've improved the support that they get, and I think we've actually, the feedback we've had is that they recognise very much so that there's been a change in the sort of support and how they're regarded, because I think if we go back, there had been a loss of foster carers over the years, and we are now reversing that trend.
I'd like to drill down a little bit more into the meetings between foster parents and social workers. The panel was advised before that the frequency of regular supervision meetings between foster parents and the supervising social worker was 4 weekly, 6 weekly, or 12 weekly. And we just would like a little bit of clarity what your aim is.
The 4, 6 and 12 is down to the specific needs of the child. Donna, you can probably provide the background. I mean, I know high level what they are, but are you able to do that?
Yes, that's fine. So it'll be led by a child, I suppose, a child who probably is new to placement. You'd expect for them to be visited more regularly with the foster carers because they'll need more support, or where you've got perhaps a child where they've got more challenges and the foster carers have got more struggles with that. You'd want them to be visiting more regularly, but perhaps a child that's really stable and settled and on a permanent care plan, you probably need to visit less. And foster carers will need sort of less support around that. So it should be really driven by the carer and the child's needs, really.
Have you got the capacity within the service to increase that capacity, increase that frequency?
It's got plenty of capacity in fostering, yeah. I'm quite confident about that.
Another question we wanted to ask, does the fostering team have dedicated staff, or do the staff work across various aspects of children's social care?
Just dedicated. They've it's a fostering and an adoption team, but they're still working on just their area of practice. So there'll be fostering social workers in there that just do fostering only. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just ask, with a new placement or a very challenging situation, is it still only 4 weekly? Because it can be more than that.
Maybe more. Yeah, you might end up out there every day. If a child needed it or a carer was really struggling, you'd expect the fostering social worker to try to support that. We've got other support in there. It might be that CAMS help. There might be lots of different aspects to the support package around those carers. There might be a family support worker. There can be other bits of support put in as well. So
Okay,
it should be needs
And
led.
the frequencies
It's the same as any child that we've got probably in the system that are receiving support from social care. We should be flexing that, visiting as according to what they need.
So I think you see 4, 6 and 12 as the minimum.
It's a standard.
That's a minimum. But I think there are, you know, we have got cases where it could very well be initially a daily contact.
And is it the supervising social worker that is kind of the coordinator of the care plan?
No, it's the child social worker that
Child
coordinates,
social
always
worker.
coordinates the care plan. The fostering, the supervisor social worker should be focused on the carers only, the carers' needs. And you have those blunt timescales like the 2, the 4, the 12. It's just our way of performance managing. So when we run our reports, it helps us we got to measure something. So if you measure those timescales, you can always see whether things are happening at the minimum standards that you require. And then you'd look underneath that further, it dip sample the work as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's my turn, and I'm going to ask a few questions around the corporate parenting strategy. So the last publicly available minutes to the corporate parenting board includes an open action to review sufficiently in the system for the number of children currently in care and potentially future capacity needs. Can you describe what that work includes and how it is being done?
Right, okay, well, the Corporate Parenting Board, we have actually made some changes to the way that's structured. Partially after a visit to Medway and seeing their Corporate Parenting Board, in which they used subgroups, so that instead of having a quarterly meeting and deciding that you're going to do something and then waiting till the next meeting, the subgroups are working continually and then reporting back. Now, we've only just introduced that, but it's already apparent that it's made quite a dramatic change to the Corporate Parenting Board. You can actually see quite clearly that there are actions. Now, you were asking about looking at sufficiency, and that's included in one of the themes. And what we already have is a draft plan looking at our existing portfolio of properties, the number of children, and then sort of extrapolating that with the numbers that we think will be coming through the system over the next probably 5 years, is it? 5-year plan. And what we're going to need by way of premises to ensure that there is sufficiency in the system. And that includes within it a complete sort of, I think, revamping, for instance, of the Greenfields estate. And I say the Greenfields estate because there are a number of buildings there which could be put. The Greenfields building itself has overcapacity in that there's a whole half of it that's unused. And there are probably in that one, if we look at remodelling parts of the building, not all that building needs to be a secure unit, but there are 2 other buildings, and we see those as providing different levels of care, not secure accommodation, but some of the things that we can't do at the moment, which is, for instance, there's a law change coming in that provides for where bail is refused, that somebody can go into non-secure accommodation. Well, you can't just pop somebody into one of our children's homes. There are all manner of reasons why that's not a possibility, and we've looked at how the same legislation operates in the UK, where they have different sort of different providers, and they're able to, the way they use this bit of legislation is that they pay an organisation to guarantee them a non-secure bed, 365, 24 hours a day. Now, nobody provides that service there. So therefore, we have to, within that, our state, we have to build that into it. Now, that's one of the sort of sufficiency needs we're looking at. But there are many others, and there are many other forms of care where you might currently ask for a secure order, but there may be non-secure means of achieving that same outcome. And so that plan is looking at that whole range of potential care. It's also looking at we are not developing a specific therapeutic home, but we are going to have a therapeutic offer for all our children, in fact. And so one of the buildings there will basically be incorporating that service. And if needs be, there may be, needs for some children during that time to be accommodated there, but it's not on the same basis as the previous thought, which was that you have a home, you have 3 children in it, and in effect, you just offer the service to those 3 children.
I think you've actually got the questions to ask.
So within that, you asked about the plan and sufficiency, and that is where we're going. A plan of this type has never been produced before, and it's both about the properties, the children we're like to see flowing. Have we got sufficient children? We've got 2 other premises that we're looking at the moment. One work is due to commence in beginning of 2025. That's an existing government property that's unused. It's a large house. There's room for a manager's, basically a sort of manager's apartment, and there's a lot of room actually for three children, and that's been sitting empty for many years. There's another set of properties we're looking for that could provide 2 units, each of looking after 3 children, and manager's accommodation above it. That's been sitting empty for even longer. And so we've been out, rather than looking for buying property, we've been out and looked at what's in the estate, and we have found suitable buildings. They need work, but we're not looking at buying further buildings.
Thank you for explaining.
Sorry,
so
it's
much
probably long.
Once you've got your process in place, does it get reviewed, or if does, how often does it get reviewed?
Let's get the plan completed first, but it will need reviewing on a constant basis, because you're going to have to reevaluate, fairly frequently the number of children coming through the system, because now we're trying to predict what might happen through the next 5 years, but
where you stand now, what would be the period of time that you feel should be acceptable to review the process once it's in place? Have you got, I know you did say
I'm going to ask Donna, Donna can.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got the reform, the improvement programme. So that board will meet monthly. That will oversee the implementation of the plan and keep reviewing the plan. Underneath that, we've got one of the subgroups of corporate parenting, which is the home and housing subgroup, which is looking at individual sufficiency for young people. So children in care that are coming through the system, that need to move to independence as care leavers. So we've set up a new sufficiency work stream that happens every Friday in the service in-house that's feeding that. So from now, forever, there'll be a constant state of review about understanding what sufficiency needs are at all the time for children and young people. So we'll plan for the future for them consistently. and then that'll get overseen by the bigger board that will keep making sure that the plan for the estate's on track and the homes are the right homes and that we're reviewing them regularly. So it'll be part of a whole big system that's a constant effort of review, really.
Thank you. Minister, I noted that you've already mentioned on your earlier answer about the therapeutic children's home project.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you in terms of money, how much money was spent on the project before it was cancelled?
Well, thankfully not a great deal. I know it's a few pounds under £14,000.
Just over
We've got
£13,000.
£13,290. And do I think that's a total loss? Well, actually, in a way, it might have cost us more to do a review to find out why we shouldn't go down that road. The fact that it cost us £14,000, I don't think is totally wasted.
Thank you for your answer. Okay, so if I was to talk about the funding, in 2023 there was an additional funding of 6.5 million.
Yep.
Okay, and it's predicted for 2026 an additional 1.7 million additional to that. So how much of that funding do you think is going into creating a sustainable future structure for the service?
Right, well, spending against that budget of 6.55, we expect to have spent around 4.5, it was 4.5, was it, in 2023?
23 and 5.
And 5 in 2024. Now, perhaps one good thing out of it, the 1.7 that you see there, which was actually for the two new homes, that actually came in at 1.3 million. So there was a £400,000 saving in effect. And so going forward, that will be down as 1.3 million and not 1.7. So that is actually for the running of those two homes. But we are progressing, that those funds are already, providing the sort of building blocks for our strategy.
Thank you for your answer. Can you please provide an update on the forward plan for the corporate parenting board in 2024, maybe more specifically around its focus?
Okay, so the focus will be on, as I said before, we've set up subgroups. So there are 4 subgroups: educational and personal development, creating safer, loving and stable homes, health and well-being, included and respected. And those are the themes on which the subgroups have been formed. And I think 2 of those are already meeting, is that right? Yeah. And the further 2 will be very shortly. But if you think we have changed the way the corporate parenting board operates literally in the last few months.
Okay.
Can I give you further? Do you want further information or?
Around the focus, I'm happy around the focus unless you want to speak any further.
We'll come back to you. We will come back to you as that develops.
Thank you, but I was going to carry on and build on top of that.
Right.
If you could describe whether there's been any change on the direction of the corporate parenting board and the forward plan since the change of the government at the end of last year. Has there been a change of direction?
Well, I think the change of direction really is we've in a way we've covered the way in which we are changing the direction, because the corporate parenting board just didn't seem to be didn't seem to be actually producing any results or anything constructive coming out of it. So, as I say, the first thing was actually to go and see how other corporate parenting boards operated. And out of that has come the fact that we're working in subgroups and themes, and there will be, as the subgroups report back to us, we will be able to see proper progress.
So it's been substantial changes, would you say?
Yeah, really substantial. And actually, it was commented on by someone at on the inspection, but also one of the members commented at the end of that they really felt now that having been to previous, they really felt that they could see that there were going to be outcomes now.
So,
Yep.
positive changes.
Positive change, yeah.
That's great, thank you. So, keeping with the corporate parenting board, how many members of the corporate parenting board have undertaken relevant training for their role?
I don't know, everybody on the board is
Everybody?
trained.
Do you want me to get?
Yes, yeah.
So I think the last corporate parenting board, before the change in administration, I think there was a lot of focus on getting that board up and running and engaged. There was some mediation and work with, the advocacy services to try and get it up and running. I think the focus now has been about moving it to the next step and making it a bit more purposeful in terms of where its direction of travel is. And so the creation of those 4 themes means that you're more able to get more focus around the things that are really important for children and young people. And the board has met together and they've had some external facilitation around the training about what everyone's roles is. All of the board members, I think apart from one, were in that in the summer in June, I think May or June, that took place to train them to be clear about what corporate parenting is, what everyone's responsibilities are. And then underneath that there's been work with all the arm's length bodies. We've brought them in together to talk about what the corporate parenting board is, what their responsibilities are in law, in the new children's law. So that work's taken place over the last 3 months, really. So everyone's been trained in that space. Everyone's had some time to sort of talk collaboratively, develop the plan and the new themes. The board's all been part of that, the members. And now we've got this 4 themes and the subgroups that will work to the board's forward plan. All of those 4 groups have started to now build a bit of an action plan about what the priorities are. So the board said home and housing is really important. So they want that to be that subgroups up and running, and have started to do the planning and the work to get the things in place that help to make the difference for those children. The included and respected subgroups up and running, and work's taken place about how we're going to engage children and young people and get them to have a voice, and work's built. The work plan for that's been built already for this year, and different activities taking place, whether it's supporting the care leavers offer or the work around
Children in Care
the
Council,
Bright Spots
which we brought
survey,
into,
creating the
because
Children in Care Council.
the Children in Care Council, that it's been sort of languishing for and nothing, and just not. Yeah, so we brought that into this process, and already there's active work now to get that up and running.
Yeah.
So yes, so from languishing for best part of a year, in the revamping of this, now it's assigned to one of the subgroups,
Substance in that.
and somebody is actually working on it. So yeah.
Thank you. I think the panel is happy with that answer. Can you please tell us about the work between the Chief Officer of SIPES and the States of Jersey Police to develop a data dashboard for the use of corporate parenting board?
Would you like
to, Rob?
I'll introduce, but then I'm actually going to hand over to the Director of Children's Services, who's done most of the work. So we've been working, myself and the Chief of Police, for quite some time to understand how we better get underneath some of our challenges around children who might be at risk of exploitation, and where that's specifically linked to missing activity. So the police already had a helpful dashboard that is shared with us as part of multi-agency working around the activity. When we then had the inspection in May, that gave a real focus that much more was needed. We needed more in-depth analysis as to what was driving that missing activity and a different way of working between our department and the police specifically. And that has really then informed how the day-to-day work will be happening, and then subsequently how we monitor data through the dashboard and through our day-to-day information sharing, which Donna has been very much driving and leading on.
Yeah, so we've created a daily missing meeting now. We've set a strategic subgroup for missing and exploitation that includes all of the relevant partners that you'd want there, the police, social care, youth service, all of the different agencies. And the daily missing meeting that's been created is now starting to look at every child that goes missing every day and to start to get underneath, to understanding about what that's about, where that's happening. Is there something we need to do to disrupt that, what's going on, if it's a location or a place that children are going to. So there's a big piece of work from that. That feeds a missing report, which it gives us the data, and starting to look at themes and trends that helps us to understand about what that means for children in terms of exploitation and risk. And those sorts of things starts us to be a little bit more intelligent around some of that. And then that dashboard, our daily missing that we've got working with the police, we've worked with them now to start to create a bigger dashboard that will come to the corporate parenting board, which will start to cover a lot more things than just missing as well. So the corporate parenting board will start to have a better line of sight about what's going on for children.
What about in terms of data collection? Do you feel you are able to collect better data?
I think it's getting better. Yeah, I think it's improving. I think we've still got work to do to make that really join up as well as you want it to, but we're certainly sharing information properly with the police. We have their missing information.
No evidence yet at this stage if you actually are able to gather better data. Or
Yeah.
would you
we
assume?
are.
Okay.
We are. We've got much more
sure.
confidence that we understand the children that are missing, how long they're missing for, where they are, where we think we're finding them. That's much better. But still work to do in practice, to make practice where we want it to be, I think.
What about in terms of responsibility for the dashboard? Who will be holding or who holds main responsibility for that?
So each part of the organisation, like police have got their own missing dashboard and their own missing data. Children's social care have got theirs. We bring that together to have a shared understanding. Yeah, so then we've got the shared information. I think we've got more work to do in using that in a more intelligent way to really make sure that we understand the whole picture.
So there are two primary data controllers between myself and the Chief of Police. So we have a very agreed process around information sharing in relation to that.
That's really good. Thank you. The Minister had mentioned earlier on about the different subgroups. Okay, would you be in a position to tell me how many of those subgroups sit on that table? So with regards to to your subgroup, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For the corporate parenting.
Yes. And there is
two of them
who sit around the table.
Yeah.
So would you be able to name which are those bodies?
In terms of members of the corporate parenting board?
No, in terms of how many subgroups are there and what is their focus?
Well, there's four subgroups.
For?
Yep.
I catch them early.
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
So
sorry.
Education is one of them.
Yeah, it's around themes.
yes. So creating safer, loving, and stable homes is up and running, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. And then I'm trying to think.
Health and well-being.
Education and personal development is up and running. The other two are in the process of. I think we've.
Can I just? So are you happy for me to say
Yes,
this?
yeah.
So included and respected is up and running because that's the one we've got the Children in Care Council that's sitting in. So that's the
Well, I
one
was
about
trying to-
participation. So that's the one that
Yeah.
you've had the oversight about the Christmas cards and
Yes,
and the Loving Homes one, which is all about care for children, foster care and residential care.
Wellbeing one, Donna.
So the health and wellbeing one isn't up and running. We're just getting them set up now. So we've been putting them in place incrementally. Health and wellbeing and the education and personal development are just being organised to take place. They'll be, I think they're due in November, December time, if I think
So
rightly.
if I give an indication, it was only on the 1st of August that we actually went to the corporate parenting board and explained to them how we were going to,
Weeks.
You're not giving you much
what
time.
the future was. So, even, you know, this is all quite new, but nevertheless, we have 2 of the 4 up and running and actually producing results. The
Yeah.
Children in Care Council is actually really moving forward now. So I'm quite pleased with where we've got to in such a short time.
Okay,
Well,
thank
I
you.
think it's Helen now.
My turn. A lot of my questions have kind of already been answered in the
Don't worry.
previous, in the previous question. But I'm really interested in the included and respected piece that's going on, because one of the questions was how care experienced children are participating with the corporate parenting board and the subgroups. So if you want to tell me how that's working, that'd be really
Well,
helpful.
that will be through the Children in Care Council, and that's why I was disappointed that progress wasn't being made in that area, and that we've brought that really back into our fold too.
So how is the Children in Care Council being kind of established and supported and able to hear the voice of children then? So,
It's only just, so it's been obviously part of a commissioned out contract grant that it was being dealt with by an agency. We bought it in-house last month, so it's only been back with the director of participation across SIPES for a month. And we've started straight away to mobilise a plan. So the subgroups met. That includes our advocacy service and social work managers, the participation director, myself, associate director, myself. So a large group of people all wrapping around. We've got a plan over the next 8 weeks to bring young people in. We've got some sessions booked this month with young people over pizza, and some other sessions booked to start to gain their views and their wishes and start to build a plan with them. So there's 3 sessions been booked with them in the coming weeks to do that. Part of that will be about consulting them about the care leavers offer and what they think about the care leavers offer, because that's a piece of work that's been waiting to be concluded for a while. There's another piece of work where earlier in the year, SIPES undertook a survey, or last year undertook a survey of all of our care experienced children and young people, and asking them would they be part of giving us feedback through the Bright Spots survey, an external company that seeks children's wishes and feelings. And that work's been pulled together in the last weeks since it's been back from Bright Spots. And over the next few weeks, or 8 weeks, we'll be consulting those young people to get a little bit more of a feeling of following up and following through on what they've told us.
how many children have you got off island?
What, today?
Yeah, in placements.
13, I think.
So how do you engage the voices of the children off island?
They're part of the plan to look at how we're going to do that. So there's been some discussions about whether we run something in the UK that would help to
Are they all
hook
in the
those
same
young
place?
people. No, they're not. So it'd be very difficult because all over the country, and some of them will be with families and some of them will be in residential care, but they are certainly part of the plan about how we're going to engage them and being part of it. There might be some online things that we'll do to help to try to get their views. It may be that we might combine some things with when they come back to the island to visit. Some children do come home and still have connections to their families.
Good.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that one. Just moving on to the care leavers offer, because you mentioned that before. I think we've asked questions about it before, but can you just describe the work that's underway to develop the care leavers offer guidance and the operational framework that sits alongside it?
Do you want me to pick one?
Yes,
and
yeah.
stuff?
I don't mind, but you'll be... Yep.
So the operational guidance has been reviewed by managers already. It's a bit of how managers apply it. I think that work's taken place. The care leavers offer was a piece of work that was going to be done by our advocacy service that hasn't really come to a conclusion, which is part of why we've said that needs to come into the Children and Care Council now. So the review of the offer will be part of the 3 sessions we're doing with young people, to bring them in to sit with them. The care leavers offer will be one of the things they review in there. And there's a survey going out to young people as well. And some of it's about trying to go through things like the advocacy service and other parts of the system that have contact with young people. They'll be able to get their views through that route. And then the review will take place over the coming weeks, and then it's due to go back to the Cooperative Parenting Board by the 4th of December for a final. This is the outcome, this is what we think it should look like, and for a sign-off by the board.
Can you tell us precisely then what's offered to care leavers by the government at the moment?
A lot. It's an extensive offer.
And are you planning to change that in the future, Minister?
Well, only within the terms of this review. So what comes out of this review will be an offer which I think is substantially better than that which is offered in the UK. And obviously we're going, we will put that on the, to the, the Children in Care Council, although that is in its infancy, for review. But I can't believe that that it won't be well received.
Okay, is it going to be better than what's currently offered?
Probably, I think probably the setting up home allowance probably isn't probably as high as what we think it should be if you look at it comparatively to the UK, and there probably is a need to benchmark that. So we've asked for some benchmarking work to happen to have a look, because I think it probably should be higher.
Okay.
But the rest of the offer's pretty good and probably better than you see most places.
Okay, and what support's available for kind of physical health and mental health support?
A lot. We've got young people are having access to dental, to healthcare, to mental health, to counselling, to coaching, to therapy, to private support.
And the care leavers prioritised. Is there a particular pathway into those services for care leavers, or are they just put on the waiting list like everybody else?
Into adult mental health, are you talking about?
Into the different pathways to the mental health and the physical health support. Are they prioritised into those?
The same.
Is there a pathway for care leavers?
No. So they will go into the general stratification process for adult services. So they will be assessed based on the referral presentation. That will be how they will be managed in the adult pathway.
So
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've had feedback from care leavers saying that they thought they were entitled to something, and then they're confused, and they're not, so it doesn't happen. So is it going to be made much more clear what they're entitled to?
Yes.
So
I think
was
that's
a problem.
part of the review is that.
Yeah, part of the work is to get that probably better onto the website, that it'll be clear about young people's entitlement. But I do think you have to be realistic about what the offer is in terms of the access to healthcare or whatever that would be for any young person or any person on the island.
And I would add that where you might get confusion is whether people do or don't meet the eligibility. And so there is a formal process there, and that's particularly what we want our advocacy provider to support those young people, those care leavers specifically, where they're then able to apply for an individual review, and where the chief officer can have discretion around whether or not we can offer the full suite.
Okay.
And we have done that on a number of occasions where we've had requests come through. Some of them have been partial, but there is a process around that, how we manage that.
Have you picked up any problems with care leavers who don't have housing qualifications?
Yes.
Yes. And something that I think we hope to resolve. Myself and Rob spent many months on one particular case, and eventually those qualifications were granted, but it was not an easy process, and I would not want that to be repeated with another young person.
If a child's placed off island, does the period of residence that they spend off the island continue to accrue with their housing qualifications?
My understanding is that they are now, under the legislation, meant to have the same level of entitlement. The challenge isn't so much now around children wanting to return to Jersey. The challenge really relates to children when they come into care at a certain point in time and then they don't have the 10-year period of being here, and then they're needing to seek housing qualification.
That's where the issue is.
They're the young people.
That's where the issue is.
That's where the issue is.
But if you are placed off island,
No, I think you've maintained
you
your...
maintain
you
your-
maintain
Yes, you
it,
maintain.
so you
So
continue
that
to
isn't a
accrue as
problem.
if you're a Jersey
It's the child who finds themselves, and there are circumstances, in Jersey.
Yes.
So are you looking at any changes to the control of housing and work law then to bring care leavers into the mix?
I'm not... Well, care leavers should be a special case.
Yes.
And this was they should be a special case already. We're working with the Minister, aren't we, to try and resolve this, because I don't actually think the law needs changing.
Just needs applying, isn't it?
Yes,
The process.
but we met a number of barriers, didn't we?
Yes.
I think I'm being fairly diplomatic.
We've also heard about difficulties that care leavers have around exemption from parish rates, and I think the last time we spoke to you,
Yeah, this is an interesting one,
going
because
to take it to Comité de Contrôle
Right.
to have a discussion. So
what has transpired is that, and we discussed this at the Corporate Parenting Board, and it's sort of been accepted, that there is an element within the money received by care leavers that already is for the parish rates. It's already included, and therefore exempting you from something that you're already being paid for is probably not the pathway that we can go down. I'm only aware of 2 cases last year where care leavers were unable to pay the rates, and I, even though they were not in my parish, I successfully resolved both of those. It's difficult for the parish to, from their welfare funds, to actually make a payment for this, because there is specifically in the trust from which we pay that money a clause that says if the amount's already provided for by Social Security, we can't make a payment. But there are other funds. So
I guess the question is, so will that be made clear when the kind of care leavers offer is published?
I think it has to be, yes.
Okay, just to sort of put that one to bed.
yes.
But what I'm trying to get from myself and Karen Shenton-Stone, who's on the Corporate Parenting Board, we are trying to get something from the constables that in effect says that should they have a care leaver who comes to them, they will be treated as, in effect, a special case. And that is what happens in the vast majority of parishes already.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. I think you did say, but just to recap, so the care leavers office guidance documents, you're kind of coming to the end of the review, you've done the consultation, and really by the beginning of next year, the guidance documents, the operational frameworks will be ready, published, and cooking on gas sort of thing. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to leave care leavers now and turn to the youth service.
Oh, Malcolm,
I'll
leave Malcolm's specialist subject.
Assistant Minister. In the budget, you might be disappointed with the question, you never know. In the budget documents, we've noted that the Youth Parliament that was run by the Youth Service is now moving to the State's Gref.
Correct.
Could you just tell us some more about that decision, please?
Yeah, so we met earlier this year and decided that the best place for this post to sit would be with the Gref, not least because it's a wider piece of work. So as well as the Youth Parliament, it gets into political engagement and political education for young people. So it was felt that, you know, although the Youth Service had done a really good job on it, part of it was team building for young people and finding themselves in youth service buildings where they need to be to get that political background is here, and other places where they're actually going to get more political interaction. So what we've done is it's moved over to the GREF. A normal recruitment process was underway before the recruitment freeze came into place, but either way this would still be frontline. And a new person starts on the 4th of November. And as well as that, in tandem, over summer, the GREF have been conducting a survey to find out what young people want to get out of this programme and how their energies can be best applied. So the results of that programme will be being produced, and then we're looking at starting the whole assembly up again, or the youth parliament up again, the beginning, hopefully to the beginning of next year.
Okay. Was there any consultation at all with young people or anybody else to move it away from the youth service into the GREF?
It was a decision that was taken by both the GREF and the youth service, but the consultation about how it's going to shape has been done since. So,
But there was no consultation with the young people
About the move.
who the existing youth parliament about the move?
not that I'm aware of, but hopefully they'll see a better experience and a more fulfilling experience than they've had in the past.
Will the youth parliament then still have access to all the youth service resources and facilities, the kind of the Crabbe weekend?
There will
and
still be some,
stuff?
there will still be some interplay between those, what is the new youth parliament and the Jersey Youth Service, because it's still where young people are, and there will still be those engagement days, because that still is really important for team building. But the overall control will come from the GREF.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very
Pleasure.
much.
Okay, so, Minister, can you describe the top 3 things that the Government of Jersey is doing to ensure that children in Jersey have a decent standard of living?
Right. Well, I think one of the things that we've done is the page. No, I'm start. It's okay. One of the things that we've done is that we have introduced school meals. So that's had quite a dramatic effect, I would have thought, on children's well-being. I mean, those meals have been very well received, and I think the children are, every time I go to school, and I'm not the education minister, but I visited one the other day, and the head teacher was extremely happy with the quality of the food and how much the children were enjoying it. So, and I've been offered a meal there, and so I think I'll be going soon.
Every day.
Only one.
You'll have to declare.
Yeah, I will. So the other thing is looking at improved housing conditions. Children need to live in an appropriate home, and the new rented dwelling licensing scheme that the housing minister has introduced, I think, is a first step towards ensuring that. I hope that also with the sort of fairly large number of family homes that will be built in the next few years, that we will see, because I think 45% of those will be social housing. They'll be exactly the same quality as those that are for sale. So I think we will see some nice family homes coming onto the market that, really do provide children, perhaps more vulnerable children, with a really nice home. And then finally, we're looking at the transition to the living wage, which again I think is quite a positive step towards reducing poverty. There will be households where parents are on that, living on the minimum wage at the moment, and moving to the living wage, I think, will have a very positive impact financially on those families.
Okay, so thank you for that. Those 3 things. My next question was about providing specific examples, because I think you've already
Well, I think one I missed actually, that along the food thing, is the co-working with the South Asian Army to produce so it'll no longer be a food bank, but it will be the food pantry, which will provide a much better service I think a small payment per week will give people access to a much better range of products. So that's something we're doing in conjunction. I think that's well worth mentioning, that one.
Okay, thank you. The recently published strategy by the Children's Commissioner has included 6 areas of focus. One of these is children experiencing poverty. A survey that they conducted has collected evidence that there are children in Jersey who are worried about poverty and the cost of living. Minister, what is your reaction and your approach about this concern of young people in Jersey in 2024?
I can understand that. We have prices have risen quite considerably over the last 2 years. I am closer to that probably as a constable because I really do see it, and I know families within my own parish where the children, it will be quite apparent to the children that there has been a change and that their parents are struggling. What can we do about it? Well, we've gone over some of the things we are doing. I think there needs to be reassurance for those children that there are measures coming in place. I think some of that can be done through the youth service, those who attend the youth clubs throughout the island, and through the schools as well. I don't know if we've got anything specific that we plan to do, but I would not want children to be worrying about that, but they will be seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's and we have to get reassurance to them that, that we can eliminate that.
Yeah.
So just add to that through the work of the Associate Director, participation and engagement, a lot of that feedback has come through the school council, and you'll probably be aware of the number of cash notes that children have wrote on those notes, what their concerns are. Much of that relates to the cost of living. And so the Chief Executive for the government has tasked all departments across the government to outline what they're doing in response to that thematic concern. So each chief officer has provided their commitment, and through that school council, the director will engage feedback into the children, because I think, as the minister says, we need to provide reassurance that we're listening, and these are some of the things that we're looking at doing to try and actually help and support, and that's the mechanism that we're adopting with that. It's good to see that voice of the child is getting such prominent focus across the whole of the government, not just within our department.
I'm very aware of this, and I can share something that I'm involved with personally, and it does relate to the parish, but it's because of my involvement as a children's minister. We are, and I won't sort of name the other people in it, but we are setting up a group specifically to help families in hardship in the parish. And it is very much based on the fact that, the awareness of what children, that we know that there are children in these families. And so I would hope that other people sort of follow that as well.
So that's in your parish?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. I think, Bea, you want to...
Yeah, would you mind if I just ask a bit further in terms of how to support those children? And I believe the minister mentioned that, through youth work sessions. My understanding is that some of those children, the most vulnerable ones, they don't attend the youth services activities. Often maybe because the parents are working all hours and they have to stay at home looking after little ones, or whatever the reasons, they kind of tend to be isolated. So outside trying to reach those children, outside the youth services, where else would you be planning to pick them up?
Well, I suppose the schools is we do have outreach workers as well who are making contact with those children who don't attend our youth services. but the schools would be the next.
Yeah, that's.
And our early help, I mean, our hub, our Children and Families Hub, will be offering a lot of support to families that aren't not even in social care that are
That's
below
important for the general public to hear where they can access those
Yeah.
supports. As I mentioned, some of them, they won't attend certain
Yeah.
venues where the support is available, but if they are aware, they can look out for that to ask for help. Thank you.
Okay, my next question, I think we can send to you as a written question, so I'm wondering, Mark, if you could
Go on to
go on to number 19.
19.
Yeah.
The Children's Commissioner last annual report recommended keeping the legislation, policy and services relating to secure accommodation orders under review. Can you describe the government's current position on secure accommodation orders?
Right, so I think secure accommodation orders is something that we are using less of. There are still instances where that is the only option that we have available, and I think that's where our sort of review of greenfields and those buildings which actually were emptying, which sit alongside greenfield, probably comes into this, where we're looking to, and this is still, this is in its infancy, but we are looking at the alternatives and how we would offer those alternatives to secure accommodation. There are, if you look to the UK and other countries, there are alternatives which may involve, therapeutic help, counselling, and this is where I said we would probably within that have a specialist centre, and that is not the same as the therapeutic centre. It's a different concept in a way that it would outreach to more children. And you would hope within time that you might reach a situation where you don't have to have a secure accommodation, and that the only time you would have that is where somebody is placed in custody as a sentence from the court. I don't think that I think there'll always be a case where that occurs. When I visited the Isle of Man, they'd had very few secure orders in the last few years, none at all, in fact, in the 2 years before we visited. But they still had, on both occasions, they had 2 young people in custody, and those were for actually very serious offences, where you would expect that to be the case.
Do you intend to take any specific action or propose legislative changes which impact the secure accommodation of children in Jersey?
Well, I think from what we've said that ultimately we have to do that, because at the moment there is one option, and so therefore if you want to have other options, we are going to have to change the legislation, and in some cases the courts will need to be able to also offer those options where they're offering a custodial sentence at the moment. There might be other forms of let's say less secure custody that could be made available.
Can you provide an overview for the panel of the current policy and services relating to secure accommodation for children and young people?
Do you want to do
that, Minister?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's defined in legislation, the secure accommodation order, so it comes under a legislative act that you've got around children. So, and I think I'd say that the option of secure is something that's driven by a child's needs. And if you've got a serious safeguarding concern and you can't, through any other means, make that child safe, and the only way to make them safe sometimes is to obviously take away their liberty, that would be what you would need to do if it means making them safe. And you've always got to balance that against their rights and entitlements. It's the same conversation we have all of the time with the Children's Commissioner. How do we get that right? It's really hard because you'd never want to take away a child's liberty unnecessarily. It's a really important thing, and that it would only be done with the full endorsement of the court. You'd have a judge, you have a guardian, you have a whole range of people that are all part of that decision making and that evidence base. And it's really well overseen by a whole string of legislative framework that requires you to do lots of things to make that decision. And it's only ever given for a really short period of time in law. The judge might say you can have 6 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever they determine. And then it's really carefully reviewed all of the time to try to find the earliest point you can stop that while keeping a child safe. And there'll always be times when, despite everything we want to try and do, we can't keep a child safe without keeping them in and stopping what's happening to them for a little while. And then we do the work to try and help them come out and move on from that.
We've already mentioned Greenfields today, Minister. We thank you for that update. But the government was budgeting in 22 for a redesign of Greenfields. We've already mentioned that. But this has been subsequently removed from plans. Do you think the Greenfield Secure Accommodation Unit needs a redesign?
I think it does. I've said this many times. It was built in a different era. It was probably out of date at the point it was completed.
It's opened.
But believe me, we're not the only people who, you know, if you go to the one in the Isle of Man, which I think might have been completed 2 years later, yes. they built it for the same purpose, but they're fortunate in that the design of the building lent itself to be able to be adapted, whereas ours doesn't. Ours needs a redesign. Now, I say that because I think if you were to suggest building an alternative in another part of the island, you would probably have difficulty getting planning permission. That has been my so far an issue that we've had with other plans, and so therefore you looked at redesigning what's there. And as I say, at least 50% of the building, I think, could be transformed into for non-secure use. If as you move to to a point where it's really for court-imposed custody for criminal offence, then you really have got to make some major changes to the rest of the building.
We'll catch up with you on Wednesday.
But it's a we are in our to be honest, it's part of our strategy, our property strategy, and we're in the beginning of that journey at the moment.
I was just going to ask, have you got any plans on when these changes might happen, when it's reviewed?
We have dates in the plan, in the sufficiency plan. I mean, when we'll as soon as we can, we'll share that with you. At the moment, it's a draft, and I wouldn't like to share it at the moment because there will be changes. But it is part of our, and as I say, in preparation for that, we are actually vacating the two buildings that are alongside Greenfields because they will be part of those plans.
And just to reassure the panel, that doesn't mean that we continue to invest in Greenfields. We spent a lot of money on Greenfields as part of the improvement notice and the changes that were needed. Under the last government and now under this government, we've continued with those changes and those improvements. So the change here is around a different way of using the building, not the ongoing having to use the building as it is now. That's a separate capital funding that we have.
And I was very fortunate to accompany the Minister on our visit to the Isle of Man facility, which I thank you for. But has there been any follow-up to that visit and after the review of facilities there?
Well, I suppose yes, there has, because what we learned from the Isle of Man is partially in our plan for you know, that is part of the plan we're putting together, so we did learn, you know, yeah.
Is there any thought about bringing an agency similar to the one in the Isle of Man to come in to run it, or is that a little bit early in the thinking?
I think it's probably early to, it's certainly something we've talked about, because, you know, that it's, I've got to say, they do an extremely good job there, and you can see their 10 years in the Isle of Man have made a very big difference to the way that their unit operates. That there are, you know, things that, you know, what I would like to, that they do, that I'd like to incorporate, and we certainly have, you know, it's one of the considerations.
How does the current law impacting secure accommodation orders align with the forthcoming youth justice strategy?
I mean, it's still there. As I say, the fact is that if we want to offer alternatives, we have to make those changes within the youth strategy. So we have to have those non-secure options within that. I'm not sure that the work that's been done so far actually includes some of the things that we would like to be in there. So that's something that I have asked to look at.
I mean, my next question is, what sight have you had of the forthcoming youth justice strategy?
I've seen a draft, but it's not necessarily. I think there are changes that we will want to make.
Thank you, Minister.
Okay, we're nearly finishing, so if we can send you some questions in writing, if that'd be okay, and maybe if I could just ask one quick question, which is just about the play policy. At the panel's last hearing, you advised that the play policy was being worked on and would be provided to the panel when possible. So please could you confirm the projected date for that work?
We have the. It's interesting. It is what we've got as a play policy, and we keep on being told we've got a play strategy, which in effect we don't have. We do have that policy document, but it's still in draft form, isn't it? Because I had copies of it. But when could we make that available to the?
It's probably, I haven't been involved in the play strategy, I don't see.
Well, it's the play policy, but it sits within 3 departments. Yeah, it's not just ours. It was quite clear within the policy that it sits within. You've got the correct page there. That it sits across. Where is it?
Infrastructure and environment.
Infrastructure and environment, children and families, and the third one is.
I'm not sure.
It's in here some.
Yeah. No, I think it might be across 2.
So who leads on this then?
It's joint work.
It's joint work. And I think we have to incorporate it into our children's plan along with other things that are joint work in order to progress it. Because there are play areas that are coming forward as part of the new housing developments. Infrastructure are actually responsible for all the government play areas. So we don't have ownership of any of those play areas. But obviously we have an interest in ensuring that there are sufficient play areas for children, and that what is delivered is what children actually require. So if I go to some large developments in the west of the island, we met the other day, I met with the developers and the builder with the primary school. And we are working with the children as to what they wish to see as part of that. For the slightly older children, we'll be doing the same exercise with the youth club in that area. And we need to see that across the island. So we need it as part of our children and young people families plan. have it within that, but delivery by a number of areas. I thought it was 3, but it could just be us and infrastructure, and I've asked to have a meeting with the infrastructure minister to discuss that.
That's good. I think this is one of the things that children have raised themselves, is that they care about a lot, isn't it? And
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I said the other day, and I don't know where I was, that the children in the primary school, they've got a very good idea of what they want. But as you move into the older age group, it's less clear what they'd like
Somewhere
delivered.
out in the dark.
Well, yes, we did have building dens and, yes, and, yeah.
Yeah, there's a nice area in St Martin's, isn't there, for
Yeah, very
teenagers
nice,
to,
yeah,
to hang
very
out
nice.
in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our time.
Have we? Oh,
Yes, we have. So
it's gone quickly, actually.
if we can send you some written questions, that would be good, because we still had some questions. So thank you very much, and we'll just bring the meeting to a close.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you.